This time on CNG Performance, we pick up 100 horsepower with one easy bolt-on, and it's not what you think it is. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, you know what I'm going to ask you to do. Reach just down below this screen, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop us a comment, because we always enjoy hearing from you guys at home. You're going to get sick of seeing this truck, I know it already. But I happen to love this thing, and I think Cassandra does too. She just doesn't say it out loud. This is our 1984 Dodge Ramcharger Prospector Royal SE 150 4x4 that we know as Tater. If you're not hip to Tater, this is the truck we found hiding in Amsterdam way back in 2014. I had been wanting one of these since I was a little boy, and when I saw this one, I couldn't help myself. I had to have it. We were living in Germany around Ramstein Air Base. We went ahead and did a cam and intake swap on the old 318. It woke it up a little bit. It wasn't going to make it a rocket ship by any means, but it did help. Put a 4-barrel on it and it ran good. The first time you guys would have ever saw this truck was back in late 2019 when we did a very terrible job at filming ourselves installing a Holley Sniper EFI. The last time you would have seen this truck was not that long ago, I think maybe just a little over a year ago, when we finally retired the 727 3-speed automatic and 208 transfer case in favor of the A518 automatic with overdrive and the 241 that came with it. Those two things together have made this truck awesome to drive on the highway. Cruises along at a nice easy 70-75 mile an hour, turning right around 2,000 to 2,200 RPM, keeping up with traffic, engine staying cool, everything's great. We're actually reporting decent double-digit fuel mileage numbers in this 6,000-pound apartment-shaped box. I can't be mad. Until you run into one of two things or a combination of both, either strong headwinds or long, tall hills. That's when the 318 really starts to struggle. We need to pump some more horsepower into this thing, but we're not going to use any nitrous, and we're not going to use forced induction. So how are we going to get there? So we're in Oklahoma. I messaged this guy this morning. He had a 98 Dodge half-ton extended cab that was being parted out. I said, how much do you want for just the motor? He said, 300. But then he messaged me right back, literally a half a minute later, says, you can take the whole truck for 250. It's hard to beat getting a carts truck for just a couple $100. So we're headed to his place now. We're gonna go pick up this truck. I missed my turn. The street signs out here rather sunburnt, so kind of faded. Of course, now I'm headed away from the sun and I can't see. So we put on my night vision. There we go. All right, so there's the Ford Dually. There's a wrecked truck. Okay, so I'll wait on this guy to come out because obviously he's coming out of where I'm going into. Because that old boy is dragging away a Tahoe or something. Yeah, apparently this guy's he's going wholesale on his stuff. That looks like that's it right there. Yeah, here's our victim. Wow, it's actually still pretty complete. I mean, despite the things that aren't there. Seats are still there. Try to get this trailer squared up with this truck a little bit. There we go. I think that'll do it. All right, let's go load a truck. Wasn't quite free.
The rear end. Got it all fit the clunky.
It's got bigger.
That's yours.
Yeah.
Number 1 ice scraper.
It's cute though. Washer bottle, power steering. Oh, there you are. Master cylinder. Booster.
So it's been about 2 years since we pulled this 5.9 Magnum out of that parted out white Dodge Ram that you saw in here just a few minutes ago. And I'll let the cat out of the bag. My plan was to take this motor, pull it apart, gap the rings, find the cheapest turbos I can get my hands on, and shove the whole match into my 73 Plymouth, that brown car that I've got. And see how fast I can make it go and how much boost this motor would take until things started to fall out. That plan kind of snowballed, and now I've got a roll cage in my 73 Plymouth, and we're talking about a big block. So now we got to figure out, what are we going to do with this motor? The plan is, I'm going to blow this thing apart. I've obviously got a whole table full of parts over here, most of which I got from Hughes Performance. We've got a camshaft from Comp. We've got a set of Hughes valve springs, locks, and retainers. We've got a Comp Cam's timing gear set. ARP supplied us another set of head bolts for this thing. Got some Cometic MLS head gaskets. Got some Renflex exhaust manifold gaskets, a new one-piece oil pan gasket. So let's get to it. And since I know nothing about the inside of this motor, I can learn a lot from just draining the oil out of it, which I don't think I've done yet. And just pulling the drain plug, I don't see anything glittery. Doesn't smell bad. I'll still probably chase those threads with a tap before I put it in the truck, just to make sure they're good and clean. Okay. Now I need to start working on getting the front dress off of this thing. Tires are done. Nice and gentle. There we go. I'll get y'all over here for a better aerial shot. Oof, yeah, they were in there. Grab my favorite motivational tool and figure out I can't use it anywhere in any of the places I really want to. Okay, pry bar for the win. This shouldn't be that bad, I wouldn't think. Oh, yeah, wow. Ugh. Well, look at that. Yeah, things don't look terrible. Well, I say that. There's a valve lock right there. We definitely need to pull the valve covers now. I'm not gonna lie, this valve lock was just chilling over here in the lifter valley. I'm a little nervous to find out the reason why it's just hanging out there, but I guess we'll know shortly. Okay, well, so far nothing jumping out at me. Alright, but somewhere in here there has to be a valve spring missing half of a lock, but I don't see any missing. So here in a few minutes I'll dig the rocker assemblies off, pull the timing cover, start getting the camshaft out, and then I think I'll call it a night. All right, so got the pan off, timing set, cams out of it, oil pump, distributor, all those things are gone. Because I've been here before, there's a lot of you out there who've been here before, and nobody is in love with this process. Absolutely nobody. But it's necessary, and that is the rear main seal. It is the one seal that no matter how much silicone you put on the back of the oil pan gasket, you cannot contain. And heaven forbid if it gets on the flywheel, on the torque converter, or whatever, and gets slung all over the bottom of your project car while it's running, then you have 1,000 different points of leakage. It sucks. Did this with the Ramcharger when I first got it. The motor was still in the truck. It's a lot harder. Ask everybody who's done it. So I figured while the motor was out, because I've been burned by this before with a big block, of not doing it because I was in a hurry, I had a tight deadline, and I just wanted to get it done. But in this case, I've got the time, I've got the parts, or at least I thought I did. And that's when I discovered I need to go back to school and learn to read. Because if I had paid attention when I ordered the first rear main seal that I bought for this motor, I would have clearly and easily seen how it says right here, Chrysler 318 340. Not what we have here. We have a 5.9 Magnum or 360. So, $30 later through Felpro, part number Bravo Sierra 40651, if you can't see it from where you are, is the correct rear main seal for this motor. And now we're finally going to get to installing it. One of these days I'll learn my lessons. It's not going to be today. So I get these useless 318 rear main seals out of here. I'll be honest, I was actually trying to assemble it with the wrong seals last night, and the first thing I noticed when I popped the cap was, number one, the bearings look fantastic, but number two, when I was pushing the new rear main seal in, I noticed it was sitting way down in that board. If you look right there, you'll see what I mean. I never claimed to be an expert. I never claimed to be a professional. So this is more of a do as I say, not as I do moment. Oh, I can do that. It says, do not install any seal without break-in lube protection. So avoid leakage, remove burrs, blah, tip. Yeah, I'll do all that. Oh, look, it's done. Yay. I'm fast. I'm really not careless. I made all the preparations ahead of time. We'll just call it movie magic, okay? Per the instructions, I am going to go ahead and give this thing a good coating of something slippery just to help it make its way through that passage, because it's a very narrow, very tight machined passage. I'm probably going to get it all over the floor, but I'll take care of that later. And another trick, you may be asking, why are all the main caps loose? Well, I have found it's easy, or easier, to install the rear main if you take some of the pressure off of the bearing. So I will gently lift the crankshaft just like that, so that this lovely mamacita will slide its way home, bearing in mind that the grooves, you probably can't see it, but it's got a hash groove in the seal that needs to go towards the front of the motor. So we'll lay it right here on top of the journal, and in any second we'll see it pop out that other side just like that. And if you got a really sharp eye, you'll notice how there's a slight edge of the seal that just barely, and I mean barely, sticks above the surface of the block here. And that's so when the upper half makes contact and they press together, it actually pushes them outward into their respective journals. Now that I got the lower half in, I will remove my implement of leverage, like so. Which I can promise you I was not damaging anything. It was riding on the edge of the connecting rod. It was not touching the crank journal. It was not touching the piston skirt. It wasn't hurting anything. It didn't even scar the windows of the block. So there's no damage done here. Again, all the main caps are completely loose all the way to the front. So no damage done there. We'll repeat the process for the upper half, or the half that goes into the number 5 cap. And I'm going to apply just a little bit, if I can make it just a little bit, of this zinc additive right here on the face of the bearing. Right there. Just a little cap full, not much. And then we'll set that home, kind of like so. We'll get our rod cap bolts cleaned up. We'll torque them in 3 equal steps. Let's say they're torqued at 85 foot-pounds, so we're going to go 20, 50, and then 85, starting at the center at the thrust bearing, working our way out. Make sure my engine stand doesn't roll away. All right, mains are now torqued. We're good to move on. I think I'll throw my new timing set on after I throw the new cam in, but before I do that, let me roll the motor back over. Okay, where's our new camshaft? So what we have here is Comp Cams grind number 20-604-9. This is a hydraulic roller camshaft. Specs are 264, 270 duration on the in and out. 512 lift on both lobes with a lobe separation angle of 112 degrees. So this thing should give us some good mid-range, which is great because it's going in a big heavy truck. Look at that. Ah, she's a beaut, Clark. But I'm noticing I am going to have to rob the Woodruff key out of the original cam that came out of this motor. However, I do not have my assembly lube, so I'm actually going to hold off on this until I have that. It should be here tomorrow. But in the meantime, I can clean parts. I'm going to get my homemade wash tub out here, clean an oil pan because it's disgusting. Try to clean the heads off a little bit. The dog bone, hold down the dog bones, a lot of these bolts, and then we'll re-engage tomorrow. So it's a new day and we're in a new shop. Our good friend Eric just had this place built, and he's allowing us to come and make one of the first messes in it. So of course we had to bring the Ramcharger over here. And yes, this is the same engine you just saw. We took the heads down to our local machine shop. They surfaced them, cleaned them up for us, gave them a nice hot bath, kicked them back to us, where we then assembled them with Hughes part number 1199, which consists of their springs, locks, and retainers, which allows us, I believe, up to about 550 lift before we run into valve to guide clearance. We drug the block over here. Once we got it pressure washed, my buddy Eric helped me get this thing painted and looking as pretty as you see it right now. But before we put all this beautifulness in the truck, we have to take some things apart and make some room for it. So, after a handful of days of unbolting and undoing things, we're finally at a point we can hook up a chain, get this thing out of here. Yeah, let's get it in there close. And we're up off the motor mounts. We're off the dowel pins of the transmission. All right, more vertical. That should be about enough. Well, there it is. Man, this thing was disgusting. Look at all this. It's horrible. I'll rob the motor mounts because we'll need them for our Magnum. And that's really it. We'll change the torque converter while we're in here. We'll do some cleanup. And then we'll stab the Magnum here in a couple days. All right, so a few days have gone by. You haven't missed much. All we've done is really tear apart the wiring in this truck. We got the engine fully dressed, the whole front accessory drive's on, all the EFI hardware is bolted down, our new coil's on, and enough talking, we're ready to stab this thing. It is definitely in there.
It looks pretty.
It's not bad, right? Cool.
Let's say fired up.
Turn the key.
Let's throw some wire.
Since we stabbed the motor in the truck, you've missed a lot. It looks like a mess because some of this is the headlight harness. We did get some of that wiring cleaned up that I've been wanting to get taken care of for a while. We got our belts put back on, had to do some adjustments, put our engine fan on. We've got the throttle body completely bolted down, throttle cables bolted on. We've got our fuel lines reconnected to the back of the throttle body. We've got the distributor stab. We just changed the spring in our Aeromotive fuel pressure regulator. We got rid of the one in the back of the throttle body. That's gone. We now not only have a gauge, which I know, yeah, we could have put a gauge on the front of the throttle body, but somewhat got the heater hoses mapped out. Believe it or not, these are these same hoses that came off of our 318. They actually do work with the Magnum in their stock locations. I mean, yeah, we've got a 45-degree outlet down there on the intake, so it kind of helps a little bit. And we're actually in the process, as we speak, of installing the line for our remote mount oil filter adapter. You can barely see if you look way down under where it comes out of the side of the block. This is a dash 10 hose, really nice fittings from Snow Performance, and it goes over to our oil filter adapter. I've got one more power cable to make. I'll set aside this stretch of 8 gauge just for that reason. I've got a master fuse. I think this is a 250 amp fuse that's going to mount on the back of the battery box. And then I'm gonna come off the fuse to a distribution block. It's got 4 3/8 studs in it. I think I'm gonna hide it probably up under here. Will allow me to tag all of my main hot sources. Like this is the charge cable that goes all the way around to the back of the alternator. This one's direct to the starter. That's the main hot for the starter. This is for the stereo amp. That'll go off the distribution block. We've got the EFI power cables and ground cables here that should go to direct battery power, but I don't think there's going to be a problem if we run them through the master fuse and through this distribution block. Let me finish up with that oil line. I'll grab the core support here in a minute and start making this look like a truck again.
Getting hardier.
I got spare parts. That means I made it better, right?
That's right.
Yeah, watch for smoke. So far, so good?
Mm-hmm.
I'm stupid. I know exactly why the truck has no power. We put all the fuses in the fuse box. There's no power to the fuse box. Well, folks, as you can see, A little bit of time has passed. The grill's going in, that's always a good sign. We got the wiring 90% handled over there. We got all the main battery terminal connections made on that distribution block. we put power to the fuse block, which is, got to say, that's kind of important. Otherwise you hook your battery up and then open the door to your truck, turn the key, and nothing happens. So hot, sleepy brain has taken over. But still moving forward. Like I said, headlight buckets are going in, and then I think we're gonna wrap it for the night. It's kind of late, got a late start. And there we have it. It's looking more and more like a truck every day. What do you think of that? But just to give you guys kind of a visual of what we did over here. So as you can see, we did get our battery put in place. We got our battery tray locked down. We got that distribution block I was telling you about. Everything's buttoned up, the cover's on. Fun little factoid, if you don't have power going from your battery to your fuse block, you get no power in the truck anywhere. So when you open the door and turn the key and nothing happens, you'll know why. We did get our starter relay wiring sort of reconfigured. Apparently the previous owner had basically bypassed the neutral safety because it quit working. And I just always left it that way because that's how I got it and it worked, so I left it alone. But I was comparing it to Knuckles because I wired that truck start to finish, and I noticed some glaring unsimilar routing between the two, and they're, you know, not that many years apart. But otherwise, everything's right on track. I mean, obviously we're running a little behind on schedule just because of weather and, you know, other commitments. So yeah, tomorrow we should be able to turn the key and set our fuel pressure on our regulator. The timing should be pretty well set. We did use the Sniper's recommended setup procedure, so hopefully we got that right. We're about 4 wires and a handful of bolts and a little bit of fluid from finally firing this thing up. I took my time because I wanted to do it right. And I mean, it still may not be done 100% right, or the way some of you might have done it, but I'm happy with it and it's going to work well. I'm way happier with the wiring situation. It still looks a little clustered, but it's way better than it used to be. We got rid of the fusible links. We got that fuse block that you guys saw. So yeah, we're gonna pack it up for the night and see you guys in the morning. All right, so he's all back together. Got the bumper put on, the brush guard put on. Eric was out here with me and we did crank it one time just to figure out that we were 180 degrees out on the distributor. We got fuel pressure. We had to fix a small fuel leak on the regulator. Some idiot who's not going to be named forgot to put Teflon tape on one of the fittings. So we have no leaks. All of our electrical connections are made. We did go ahead and replace that neutral safety switch. It did not fix the situation, so I'll dive deeper into that later down the road. But for now, we grounded the relay and it works the way it's supposed to. So we're just gonna let that ride. We have coolant, we have oil. I think we're gonna turn the key. Wish me luck. I don't think we're charging. So there it is. That's our version of how to retire an old 318 and replace it with a 5.9 Magnum from a newer model truck. And honestly, it was probably the best decision for this 4x4 here, because it's reliable. It's a newer model engine, hydraulic roller camshaft, better machining practices. I mean, the cross-hatch pattern was still in the cylinder bores when we took this thing apart. It looked fantastic. So there's no doubt in my mind that this thing is probably going to outlive the truck that it's sitting in. I'm extremely pleased on the way this thing turned out. It runs awesome. It's got plenty of power everywhere. The camshaft doesn't sound radical at all. I'm so happy we went this direction. So if you've got an old Dodge truck like this, or even an old Mopar car, and you're thinking that old small block that's been pushing it around is finally starting to show its age, don't be afraid to go get one of these Magnum motors. They're still out there, and they're probably a cheaper alternative. Don't get me wrong, those Gen 3 Hemis are great engines. They make good power. Even the 5.7s in the pickups, I think, make 340 something horsepower out of the box. But with the cost you'll inflict with the ignition system, motor mounts, exhaust, all the other little details that come associated with a Gen 3 Hemi, not to mention putting together a fuel system for it, that cost is going to add up. We picked this thing up for essentially $100, and we might be all in on this swap for, I don't know, let's say $1,000 total. That's with paint, that's with fluids, that's with gaskets, the camshaft, the intake, all totaled up. Maybe $1,100. And those 5.9s are still out there. They're everywhere. They're in Durangos, Dakotas, Ram pickups, Dodge vans. They're inert. A dime a dozen. And it depends on where you live, sure, but this is an easy swap. Anybody could do this in a weekend. You give it a quick bath, you throw a camshaft, a set of valve springs on it, swap intakes if you want to go the carbureted route, stab it in your project car and go. We have got to give a big shout out to our friend Eric for letting us be the first major project in his brand new shop. He let us come in and make a mess on his floor. So we really appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts, all the help that you invested. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to be on the lookout for us on social media. You can catch Cassandra at MoparChick85 on Instagram. You can catch me at Gary's_Garage83 on Instagram. That's a wrap for this episode, but in the meantime, I'm gonna go enjoy my truck. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.